Today, I'm going to share 5 unexpected signs that you are going through a spiritual awakening. So, if you've been having a rough ride recently, then this video is for you. If you're questioning things, if you're unsure of where to go next in life, decisions to make, you'll find this very helpful. I'm Jeremy Devons. I've been in astrology for around 20 plus years now and looked at thousands of charts and thousands of case studies. And I had my own first spiritual awakening, as I would call it, in my late teens. And it was a pretty surprising, unexpected moment. And it set me on this path of questioning my life and trying a lot of different things. So if you're in a challenged place, I can resonate, I can relate. I'm here to offer some perspective and empathy and support and help you understand what actually might be happening in the bigger picture. So in the spiritual world, this word awakening or spiritual awakening is kind of thrown around a lot. Like, what does it really mean? And it's pretty vague and nebulous. So it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people. To me, it's kind of like when you wake up from a dream and you realize you were dreaming, you were asleep, and that the dream was not all that there is and the only reality, but it may have felt like that when it was happening. And now you can sort of analyze it and be curious about it and have a perspective of it. Of I wonder what that meant, or what was the symbology of that, or what is their lesson that's coming through in this dream that's trying to teach me something. When we have an awakening in our waking life, I think it's like that. It's like you might stay in a job for 5, 6, 7 years, and then one day wake up and question, like, why did I stay in this job? Is this really what I want to be doing? Is this really fulfilling? Or you might be in a relationship and growing in different paths and starting to wonder like why you have these certain habits in relationship, and is that really fulfilling anymore? It doesn't mean you have to end the relationship, but it means that you're now conscious of something that you were, you could say, asleep to, and now you are conscious of it and you're waking up to it. So I don't think it has to be this big grandiose idea of awakening and now you're an awakened enlightened being and you have all the answers. I think of it as the sense of waking up, like you were asleep and now you're awake, and now you're thinking like, oh, that was an interesting dream. I wonder what I can learn from that. Or maybe just like waking up, you don't remember your dreams, and it's just like the night went by, and like, oh my gosh, how did I sleep 12 hours? Or how did I stay asleep at this job for 5 years, or this relationship for 10 years, or whatever the thing is. These are very common things I talk to many people about every week. So, the 5 unexpected things that might be coming up in your life as signs that you're about to or you're going through a spiritual awakening are not things that you might normally expect. So, they're unexpected. So, the first one is pain. Any sort of pain, like you're feeling a physical pain in your body, or an emotional stress, or there's like a digestive issue going on, or a chronic back pain or shoulder pain. To me, my understanding of pain is to see it as an acronym: pay attention inside now. And if you ignore it, you don't pay attention, you don't go within, it tends to escalate and it becomes more and more of a problem. What was once just a little twinge of pain in your low back can eventually become something that requires surgery and you have to fuse a disc in your back. Now, I'm not talking about injuries or traumatic events like a sports injury or a car accident where suddenly something happens and you need to have a surgery. This could also be part of an awakening of like something is now kind of shaken loose in your life and it's getting your attention. But I'm talking more broadly about like pains in the shoulder tension or digestive issues or chronic headaches or these more not big T trauma kind of things. So like more small T trauma or like aches and pains and like why does this keep happening? Why do I keep having allergies or whatever the thing is? And it's trying to get your attention. And we can ignore it and just try to go about our day like nothing's happening. These messages tend to get louder until they get our attention. Why? Well, I think it's partially is because your soul has a destiny or a path that you have free will in. I don't think it's all predetermined. Maybe it is. I don't know. But I think that you have some level of free will and choice of what you do with this energy, these karmic blueprints that we have, we could see in our birth charts, and this way of being and our psyche and our personality type and all this. But the pain is saying you are somehow dissonant to that true self. You're somehow going against what is aligned for you. You're somehow out of alignment. I teach yoga as well, asana. So, like when you're out of alignment in a pose, you're more likely to feel pain in the body. Like if you're in warrior two pose and your front knee is coming inward, this is a common misalignment people have. That's not a huge deal. 1 day, 2 days, 5 days. But you do that for weeks and weeks and months, you're likely to start to twist your knee, which is not really meant to twist and rotate just like 1 or 2 degrees. But you rotate it a little bit every day, and then eventually you're going to need knee surgery. You tear the meniscus or something like this. So this is an example of an alignment physically in the body that is starting to get your attention. Maybe you do Warrior 2, it feels a little bit off. You're not exactly sure why. You don't know. And that's where a yoga teacher helps, or a teacher or guide in this metaphor helps in some way to see it, because the teacher or guide has been there and they can see it really quickly, where you might not even know that something is out of alignment. You might even have a knee pain and don't realize it's the Warrior 2 pose that's causing it. Now, again, use this as a metaphor. It's not just talking about Warrior 2 or yoga poses, but it's a great example of where we have physical alignment. And if we are unconscious of a misalignment, it can start to lead into bigger pains and issues down the road. And the awakening in this metaphor is just knowing that your knee is drifting inwards, and the alignment of the pose is to have your knee moving forward, and that the knee doesn't have room to rotate. It's not designed to rotate more than 1 or 2 degrees. So it's rotating, and that's going to eventually cause an issue down the road if you keep doing that. So the pain is saying, pay attention inside, notice what's happening, and start to ask questions, start to be curious about it. And this is usually the first thread that you start to pull on the path of awakening. And for me, one of those things many years ago was a digestive issue. I chronically had this digestive pain, frequent digestive pain. And it seemed like I was trying all these different things. I was eating pretty healthy. I thought I was eating very healthy, and still it was this digestive issue. And I kind of ignored it. I just have this issue and I just eat, and I don't know, I'm eating right. I'm eating the right things as far as I know. So I don't understand why I have this issue. And it took actually looking at it of like, okay, I've got to do something about this now. I'm not just going to pretend it's not there and just try to eat the same way. Something isn't working. So the pain is saying, pay attention, something isn't working. And for me, that was the stomach. So I started doing anything I could to learn about the stomach and digestion, and trying different diets, and some would help, some would make it worse. And eventually leading me to Ayurveda, which was what helped me the most, of learning I was a Vata dosha. I didn't know this at the time. And I was eating very Vata foods, which aggravates digestion, and living a very Vata lifestyle in Minnesota, and staying up late and being in a very creative lifestyle, making music all night. And that's all very Vata stuff, which is all fine. But when it starts to become an excess and a pain and an issue and a chronic illness in some form, then it's not so fine and it needs attention. And it started to lead me down this path to awakening to this awareness of Ayurveda and the doshas and the elements, and this whole path of healing stuff in my stomach. And it took from that initial decision to like do something about it to have a huge capital T, I would say maybe middle T, not a capital T trauma, but a big trauma was released that was just like stewing and stuck in my stomach for years. And I didn't even know. It came up through years of working through layers of things, and eventually having this big anger release that was stuck in there from my teens, that took me until I was in my mid 20s to have that emotional release. And along the way, I had this digestive issue getting more and more intense, and started pulling the thread of getting stomach massage, learning Ayurveda, learning about the chakras, and doing deep personal work and therapy and things like this. Astrology helped a lot, of course, but it was a lot of layers of work to get to that root of it. And the big awakening, really, along the way, there was many awakenings and realizations, but the big one took many years from the first initial moment of like, okay, I'm going to do something about this pain, to finally resolving it. It doesn't have to take so long, but I think it took as long as it needed. For me, I think it takes as long as it needs for everybody. So that's the first unexpected sign of a spiritual awakening is pain. Pay attention inside now. And if you're having any sort of chronic pain, pay attention and be curious about it. Ask it what it needs and listen to it. Have a dialogue with this part of your body. And the secret is that there's always some pain in the body. And you might not be conscious of it. It might just be like you're living with it fine. But if you go see a body worker or get a deep tissue massage, you'll find where the things are hiding in there. And those are all big opportunities for deeper levels of personal growth and awakening and awareness through the body, going within. Now, the second unexpected sign of spiritual awakening can arise if you ignore the pain or if you try to keep your mind super busy with things going on that are out of your control and things in the past. And this is depression. And this is also something I struggled with myself, and many people I've talked to have struggled with in the past, or some people going through it right now. And depression is like your nervous system getting stuck in the off position or down position. Versus the third unexpected sign of spiritual awakening is some sort of panic or a high anxiety or a panic attack. And this is your nervous system getting stuck in the on position and too active, hyperactive. So they're extremes of the same issue of you don't take the time to go within and the body gets more and more reactive, either shutting down with depression or spinning super fast with panic. And if you've seen the movie Inside Out 2, the second one, there's a great example in that movie of panic. Now, I'm not spoiling anything, so I highly recommend you see it if you want to understand the emotion of anxiety, which could lead to panic. It's very well articulated there. And depression is like the sadness in the movie Inside Out also, but taken to the extreme of sadness kind of taking over the life and heaviness. And depression is a heavy feeling and it's a stuck feeling, and eventually it gets unfulfilling, and it can lead to some very dark negative thoughts. And one thing that I read that was very helpful when I was in the depression was the book The Artist's Way by Alex Gray, an artist I really respect and admire. He does a lot of sort of psychedelic or visionary art, and he talks about the idea of ecocide, of like the ego dying. And this idea that every year many people jump off the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, and a percentage of those people survive every year. And what's interesting is that the majority of the people who survive don't do it again. You think they are trying and they're going to try again. But what actually usually happens is that they go back to their life, but they are willing to just change and just be a different person and just let the things that were weighing them down go. They didn't like their job, they just quit. It's like if they're willing to just lose everything, well, they've already lost everything. It's like everything else is extra. And that was like super inspiring to me of like, I'm so depressed and down. It's like life can just be anything now. Like I can just start over. I can just be anybody. I can just do anything. And it got me out of my things where I was stuck and like ways I have to be. And I was actually like very inspired by a lot of very emotional, moody artists like Kurt Cobain, and thinking I had to suffer for my art, and like to be more creative, I had to be in more pain. And there's some validity to that. It's why it's a stereotype, but it's not the ultimate reality. And I realized I didn't want to live in that reality. I wanted to enjoy life. I wanted to try different things. I went to meditation and yoga classes. I studied astrology, and these things were very helpful to me. And that's why I share these things now. But through the depression, like going into it, I let it take me. I let myself feel the sadness and the loneliness and the pain and all these things to go into it. And it led me to this idea of the ego side in the book, The Artist's Way. And that was the answer I was looking for of like, okay, well, this was a big breakthrough, big awakening. Like I saw my life in a new way. Like I woke up to the story I was telling myself of having to suffer for art and all these things. So if you are struggling with depression now, and knowing it's your nervous system stuck in the off position, it's heavy, and it can be the path to some sort of new insight and awakening of what is really causing that. Like, what is the story you're telling yourself? What are the beliefs underlying this experience? And that could lead to spiritual awakening. The third one I already mentioned is the opposite. It's when you have so much pain and you don't address it, it turns into anxiety and all these to dos and overwhelm and panic. And that is the nervous system stuck in the on position and it's too much activity. So, this means that to balance it out, you need some time to go down, to turn off the anxiety and to be still and quiet. And there may be a need to like run some of the energy out, like going for a sprint or a run or exercising. There may be some physical energy to release, but very likely the healing is going to come from down regulating the nervous system. And the real healing is going to come from paying attention inside when it arises. What's happening? Is it fear about the future? Usually it is. Depression is usually pain about the past, and panic and anxiety is usually fear about the future. So, what are you afraid of? What are the potential outcomes you're afraid of? Is there something that can be done in the moment? There's something that needs attention in the moment. And the one thing we always have access to in the moment is the breath. And the one thing that can regulate your nervous system and change your nervous system faster than anything else is your breath. So, in those states of panic, there may be awakening around what needs attention in your body, of like how you're breathing, how you're moving your energy through the day, how you're maybe staying in stimulated nervous system state, like eating lots of chocolate, drinking lots of coffee, eating lots of spicy foods, and being in a rushed state throughout the day. This all increases sympathetic nervous system state. So there may be opportunity to awaken to patterns of speed, of rushing, of urgency, living in a way as if like somebody pulled an alarm and waking up to an alarm. Like this is so common that people don't wake up without an alarm. And that's something that I eliminated from my life and tried to build my life around not having to wake up to an alarm. I know that's not possible for everybody, but it may be more attainable than you think for a lot of people. And it just means kind of planning the night before when you're going to go to sleep and having a routine there. But just the feeling of cortisol rushing through my body as soon as I wake up is awful. And whatever I can do to not have to wake up to an alarm is very high priority to me. So I think that's something maybe worth prioritizing if you also don't like waking up to a rush of cortisol and adrenaline, which already starts your nervous system on a sort of high sympathetic state. So noticing those patterns, noticing the sense of urgency. Many people say they have a pattern like they feel like if they relax, they're not doing enough. Or maybe they had a parent or a spouse who would somehow get angry at them if they were too relaxed or just taking it easy. There's layers to this. All I'm saying is that if you are experiencing panic, stress, anxiety, panic attacks, this is actually likely a sign that you are on a path of spiritual awakening and there's something there to learn from it and a path to discover what it's trying to teach you. Number 4 is any sort of abusive situation. This could be being with an abusive partner, unfortunately, and I highly encourage if you are in some sort of abusive situation to do whatever you can to get out of that situation. Oftentimes, when this happens, people say things like never again, and they're not going to repeat that. And a friend of mine who had a series of narcissistic partners, and I know people throw this word around, but it is a real thing. And the narcissistic personality disorder can be very abusive. And like my friend went through this series of relationships like this, and he said that he realized once he awoke to the patterns and was aware of the patterns, he would never do it again. And it led to some of the most positive growth of his life once he finally awoke to the pattern and saw it and realized what was happening. So, with these things and with all the things I'm sharing today, it can be, again, very helpful to have a teacher or guide or mentor who can be there to help you see what you cannot see yet, and help you discover and unravel the patterns going on. Just like a good doctor can diagnose an issue that you have symptom, and they can say, oh, you have this issue. And now you have a way to work with it. And it's important not to put labels on everything, and not everybody's a narcissist, and not everyone who has digestive issues has depression or vata dosha or whatever, or unhealed trauma with their stepfather or whatever, like it was for me. This is all unique and personal to everybody. But when you have the support and guidance and perspective to assess what's going on, this can really help you see it more clearly. That's what we do in astrology readings. That's what I do in my work in the physical body, in the breath, with yoga teaching. So if you are in an abusive situation, or in some ways self-abusive, being harsh on yourself, being critical to yourself, self-harm in some way, this is an opportunity to slow down, to pay attention within and see what is really going on and get to the root of it. And it may take time. Like for me, it took many years to really get to the root of my stomach trauma and pain. And my digestion completely changed after that. But it took some time. So abusive situations are not something that just happens for no reason out of nowhere. It's often generational, and that you cannot control the generational trauma, but you can control your awareness to address it. And it may not be easy, so I don't recommend doing this kind of work alone. Definitely have a therapist, guide, mentor, astrologer, teacher, all the resources you can have, massage therapist, free, paid, whatever it takes, books, online, in person. Have a lot of resources. When you're really in these difficult situations, you need help. Like you can't do it by yourself. We're not really meant to do all this alone. But these people can help you see the things that you can't see and see the potential of this. And I want to be very clear. I'm not saying you should seek out any of these experiences, and you should not try to create them in your life, and you should not make it an excuse for someone else's behavior. But for your own growth and awareness, you can see it as an opportunity to learn from it, to not have to repeat it again, to change potentially generational karmas, to change potentially other people's lives. Because if you can heal this, then maybe you can help someone else heal these issues. It can be a major path of spiritual growth and awakening at so many levels. And the fifth unexpected sign that you are going through or having a spiritual awakening in your life arising is that you stop caring what others think. And you really reach this point of like, you've got to do what's best for you. And it doesn't matter if your parents don't approve of it, or if people judge you, or you're afraid you're going to fail, or someone says you can't be successful. You reach a point where it's like, you've got to do what is aligned. You've got to do what is true for you. And the pain of denying yourself, the pain of not expressing yourself, becomes greater than the pain of just doing the thing that you feel called to do. It could be starting a business, or starting a family, or moving to somewhere, or making some big life change, quitting a job that's not fulfilling. Do all these things with your due diligence and thinking about it, and with intention. Don't just rush into anything too rash. But when you stop caring what others think, it's not about anyone else's approval or ego or pride or needing to impress anybody, or you want to have this job because it sounds nice, or you want to have this relationship because your parents pressure you and don't want you to change anything, and whatever the external reason is. When you reach your breaking point of like letting those externals dictate your life, like the floodgates are about to open wide up. The movie Eat, Pray, Love in the book is all about that, and she goes on this journey, a spiritual journey, because she has to follow her heart. Like she can't ignore it anymore. And I want to be clear also that following your heart does not mean you have to hurt anybody, or you have to end anything, or you have to quit something, or somehow leave people. That's not the answer necessarily. It might be part of your path, but it might not be also. So your path is your path. It doesn't need to look like anybody else. And that's part of what I'm saying with this is like, you might be part of a very religious community and it's not aligned for you anymore, and you want to leave, and it's going to ostracize you from a lot of people or a community or whatever the thing is, but it's aligned and it's in your heart, and you will end up finding the community that is aligned. You will end up finding the path that is aligned. But it's going to take some time and some courage and some trust. And it's very important to have support when you go through these transitions, because when you kind of just go out on your own or change something or make a drastic change and you don't have any support system, anybody supporting you or giving you reflection or perspective, it's going to be easy to just go back to the way things were and kind of quiet again the soul's calling, and that pain will come back and the stuck energy will come back, or the anxiety or whatever the thing is for you, until it becomes just unbearable and you want to change something. And usually that change is going to involve some level of greater health for yourself, some level of greater service to others, some level of greater expression of your gifts. And usually that's going to involve some level of more people benefiting in some way. If you're staying at a job that you're not fulfilled, you feel stuck, unexpressed, you're probably not doing your best work. And if you pursue a path where you are feeling a calling and you are lit up and inspired, you're probably going to do really good work and probably going to have some success there. Maybe it takes some time, maybe it takes a few years, but it's likely and it's inevitable over time. So I hope this episode has given you some perspective and guidance on your path. If you're experiencing any of this stuff, again, I encourage find support systems that really help you navigate it. Don't have to do it alone. And see the bigger picture. Like in a year, 5 years, 10 years, if you continue on the path of paying attention within, exploring this calling of your soul, it's incredible where your life could end up. And I've seen it for myself and many others. And, it's going to be different for everybody. Maybe you're going to have ups and downs and setbacks, and that's totally okay and normal. But if there's something that you feel is being called forward in you, it's there for a reason. And there's people who are going to benefit from that beyond what you can currently imagine. And it's there for a reason. So trust that inner knowing and that inner knowledge, that inner guidance. And I hope this is helpful and supportive on your path. And I wish all the best for you and the people that you interact with as you go further on the spiritual path.